Hi, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to just talk randomly for a minute or two, just in case you're not connected yet, because I'm just looking at the viewer bar at the bottom of my screen, and it's telling me 0 right now. But I also have a confession to make. I forgot to post on Blackboard. I only just did that this morning, so it's really just a copy of what I put on the blog yesterday with a link to this session. So I'm going to give people a minute or two to find this, and so I'm still seeing 0 down there. So hopefully it will just take a minute or two to kick in like it did yesterday. I'm just going to look across and see if anyone's written any comments on the other page. Just a moment. Right, okay, this is telling me we've got 11 viewers on the Google Plus page, which is good. So it might just be a delay with the camera. So yeah, still got a 0 on this. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed going through the first topic, which should be pretty much at an end for you now, because you're sort of 3:30 in the afternoon on Friday, so the end of the first week has come around very quickly. Right, great, brilliant. I'm starting to see the numbers going up now. We've come up to 5 viewers on this main screen. So I'll just hang on for a moment, see if that gets any higher. There should be a fair few more than that. Oh, brilliant, we're up to 7 now. 8, excellent. Still staring at the, I don't know if you can see on your screen, the right down at the bottom right-hand corner, it might be under the fold, but there's a little clip sign for the links to the module, and there's also a number board. There's 9 viewers at the moment. So I'm just going to give that a little bit longer, because we were looking at more like 30 something yesterday. Or maybe you're all just getting on just fine and don't need to talk to me, in which case I guess that's good. And don't forget as well that you know, if you've got any queries, you don't have to wait for this Hangout session. And sometimes it's, particularly if it's something that requires me to actually check a post or check a blog, then it's easier to do that when I'm offline. So feel free anytime if you want to tweet or email a question, and that includes the next couple of days as well. We don't want anyone to be stuck and feel that they haven't got any support. Okay, right, I'm going to start for real now then, because that number is ticking up, so I think you're probably all online okay. Perhaps I'll just see if we've got any questions. Oh, yes, we've got some questions. Hang on. Okay, there's a question about comments. Yeah, okay, I'll come back to that one in a minute if I may, because I've got a few points to say about that. What else have we got here? Okay, I've got a smiley face, that's good. It's always nice to see smiley faces first thing in the morning. And I've got a hello, thank you. And just seeing what else we've got here. I've got a hi, great. One's done. Another smiley face. Good. And we're up to 15 viewers now, even better. Another smiley face, that's even better. Right. Okay, I want to say something generally about word limits. I've got quite a few notes. I've got an old school piece of paper here, because I was reading through a number of your posts last night, and I've made some notes to remind me of specific things I want to point out to you. Now, you might have noticed I'm all on my own this morning. This is it's all very sad, but no, it's not a technical problem. Olya has got another project she needs to do first thing this morning that involves her being in the car right now, I think. So it's a little bit difficult to be on a Hangout while you're driving. It's one of the challenges of the digital age. We are always connected, but not necessarily while we're driving the car. And Charlie as well, he was one of the students that you met earlier in the week. He was going to beam in, but he's now had to go into university, so he's also on the bus, I believe, right now. So he's not going to be joining us. So it's just me. So I think it'd probably be a fairly short session this morning once I've been through my notes of initial feedback. But we have some other guests planned for you next week. We've got 1 or 2 people who've heard about the module and would like to beam in and say hello and give their own perspective on it. So so next week you'll get a bit more variety with 1 or 2 guest people on the Hangouts. Okay, we're up to 19 now, so I'm going to start going through some of the comments on the work you've done on your blogs so far. So first of all then, I was really impressed by the very detailed audit posts that a number of you wrote, which was brilliant. You didn't just complete the form, but you wrote quite a long explanation as well of how you felt you fitted in, and that was really useful for me to find out more about your history and what you've done and the kind of things you use the web for already, and hopefully you'll find that a useful exercise when it comes to the end of the module, and you look back on that and you can think, gosh, I've really done a few different things in this category now in the past 2 weeks, and why might that be, and what have I learned from it, and that will all be useful reflection for your final post at the end of the module. So thanks for doing those. I think you will find those really useful as a reminder of what you did when you started the module when we get through to the end. I want to choose specific points about those posts. Quite a few of you said that you hadn't had any experience in collaborating with others online, and I wondered if you'd thought that actually that's exactly what we're all doing now. This whole process is not just about you and a tutor, it's about the whole group learning from each other as much as from one person. So you're very much part of an online community, collaborating with each other, whether that be in terms of commenting on each other's work, whether it be to do with sharing links you find on Twitter. I've seen 1 or 2 of you have already helped out colleagues by answering queries on Twitter that they've raised about their blogs or about their own tweets. So that's all part of being an online community, and we might be just at the start of it now, but hopefully by the end of the module you will have had some real practical experience of just how beneficial that can be. Okay, another point that occurred to me from your audit posts was that understandably most of you tend to use the social networks for social purposes, which is absolutely fine. No one's saying you shouldn't do that. But just remember that the focus here on this module is thinking about how you can apply that to your learning. So, how can you use the same tools but for perhaps a slightly different purpose? And therefore what might need to change or what can stay the same? What skills that you've already got can you apply to using the tools for learning, or perhaps what new skills do you need to take on board? And the other thing, of course, that's very much the focus of this module is about employability. And it might seem a long way off to you now because you're still at a fairly early stage of the degree programs, but believe me, it's never too early to start building up your LinkedIn profile, building a Twitter network, getting appropriate references if you've got part-time jobs or previous work that you've done. I know from reading your introductions that some of you have already got very varied backgrounds, work experience, which you can be drawing upon and pulling in to your profiles, getting appropriate references in place and things like that. So should the occasion arise if you get an unexpected interview, for example, for a role, then you've got the collateral there ready, and you don't need to kind of scrabble together a LinkedIn profile overnight, which always looks a bit false anyway. So bear that in mind, that think about how you're going to be using these tools perhaps in a slightly different way. Even though you think you might be experienced bloggers already, for example, then really the task in this module isn't necessarily about blogging per se, but it's about how you use the task to improve your learning, and also thinking about it from a marketer's perspective, because blogging and tweeting are pretty much essential roles of digital marketers these days. So it's not just us as consumers we're thinking about here, but also how perhaps in a business context these tools might be applied. Okay, so that's just a few points. Oh, one thing I wanted to highlight, Kelly. I don't know if you're listening, Kelly. Perhaps you could put a comment on the questions if you are, because I wanted to highlight your post as a really good example. You did the Googling yourself exercise, which is always a bit of a scary thing to do. But you said that made you think about how you might look to an employer who was perhaps thinking about employing you or looking at your application, just Googling your name. And you said you thought that there was some stuff that they might not like to see. And that reminded you of what Ed Group been telling you about in your HRM module. Now that's a really good practice to get into, is to think about what else you've covered in your course that might be relevant to this one. So in your reflections, there's no reason why you can't draw upon something you've done in an earlier module that you think is relevant. So that's great to see comments like that. So it's good to see that Edgar's been making an impact with you. He's a good guy. Right. Okay. So moving on then to the topic 1 posts. Can I just have a few smiley faces? Is this all making sense so far? As a bit of feedback. So if you can pop any smileys or questions that arise from this, or any issues if you can't hear properly, just please pop them in the questions box. I'm not seeing anything there at the moment, which is good. Okay, so looking then at the topic 1 posts, I guess the first thing to say is that you really don't need to reproduce the question as the title or even the first paragraph of your answer. I'm sure you've noticed, if you now look at everyone's answers in the course blog, that a lot of them look very much the same at the start, because the WordPress layout displays the first few lines of your post. And if all you've done in those first few lines or in the title is repeat the question, then your post is going to look pretty much identical to the person's next to you. So what a few people have done is to put in really nice catchy titles and nice catchy first lines, which make their posts stand out if someone is just reading the first few lines that they would see if they're looking at them in a blog like this. So, and also you're wasting your word limit just by reproducing the question. We know what the question is, so you don't need to actually write that out. So try and start your post with something that's distinctive and catchy. Think about it as an advert, if you like. So what can you put that makes it look really distinctive? So that's just something to bear in mind going forward. What else did I want to say? Okay, yeah, the other thing as well, we asked you to talk about the digital natives versus digital immigrants and residents debate. The reasons we used that as an introductory topic were partly because it's a fairly self-contained topic. It's a good one to practice on, because it's not something that's so broad that you kind of get lost and might worry about what you might need to include. So it's a fairly self-contained topic, but also it's particularly relevant to marketing. And I can tell from reading what you've written that you're obviously reflecting on your own behaviour and how that's changed in terms of how you use the web and how you interact with people online. So if you're in a marketing role for a company, then you really need to think about how you communicate with your customers and how your customers' communication styles and preferences may have changed or be changing. So this whole debate is very relevant, not just to us as consumers, but also from a marketing perspective as well. Okay, and so you don't really need to spend a huge amount of time just when you're answering any of the questions on this course. you don't need to spend too much time just repeating really what the key points of those questions are. It's great to do that in a short summary paragraph to show that you've understood the issues and what your position in relation to them is. But try and save some space in your posts for actually putting in your own perspective, drawing on your own experience, or, as I said, making links to things you've covered in other modules that are relevant, or increasingly as we go through this module, thinking about how the different topics interrelate. So you might look back on topic 1 when we get to topic 4, for example, and make a connection that's relevant. So if you spend too much time just really repeating the main arguments of the topic, you're not going to leave yourself much space for that. Another thing is that will make your post stand out is if you've used some material that wasn't actually in the original list that we gave you. We did say that the list of links was really a starting point to get you going. And some of you have found additional ones, and that's brilliant because again, that makes your work stand out and look different. If you start reading through a number of the posts now, you'll see Dave's video crops up in quite a few of them, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in terms of making your post distinctive, it's not really doing that because a lot of people have used the same video. So try and find something that's a bit different. It might be a completely different perspective on the topic, or it might be a similar perspective but written by somebody else. So don't just restrict yourselves to the material that everyone's already read. You're going to get much more out of your learning if you contribute just one extra thing yourself. Then by the time you've read a few other posts, if everyone has just contributed one extra thing, then collectively there's a lot of extra resource there, rather than the same pieces being repeated in lots of different blogs. Okay. Right, yeah, I had an example, a good example I was going to show you. So I'm just going to screen share for a moment. Hopefully this is working okay. So what do we want to show you? Right, just bear with me a moment. Yes, it was Evan's blog, if Evan's listening. So hang on. Yeah, right, okay, just bear with me a minute. I found the right place. So I'm going to go back, share my screen. Come on, screen share. It's all been a bit slow. Okay, can't find the page I'm looking for. All right, don't worry, we'll leave that for a moment. No, it's disappeared. Okay, oh right, I'm just looking at the questions box. Something else has appeared here, just a moment. Right, okay, there's a question about if the blogs don't appear. This is from Corinne. Okay, yeah, I noticed one or two of you have had this issue. Sometimes, I don't know why, but sometimes it takes a while for your post to appear. You might need to refresh the page or come back to it a little bit later. If you're totally sure that the categories have been put in correctly. So no, don't worry about that. We will be marking directly from the list of your individual blogs, rather than from the main page. So we'll go through each of you as individuals rather than looking at it from the blog itself. So no, don't worry, you won't get missed. What I would say, if you think your work isn't showing, and that you're sure that you've been through the various checks, then just ping me a message and copy in Sylvian, and Sylvian can can check out the back end of WordPress and see if there's anything there that might be causing a technical problem. So if you find over the weekend that your work's still not showing up, then do that, and we'll get that checked out for you. But it certainly doesn't mean that your work will be missed. Okay. Right. Not seeing any more questions. Done that one. Okay. Right, yes. The other question that I've just managed to delete by accident was about word limits on comments. Yes, I think it is important for all your work that you stick to the word limit, and that was something that was on my list of general comments as well. That some of the posts are a bit repetitive, and you need to think that if you're doing this as a marketing exercise for a company, you want to catch people's attention. You really need to be doing that in the first few lines, but then don't, if you've got their attention, you want to keep it. So if your post then gets very long and rambling and repetitive, then people will lose interest, and they'll stop reading it, and they won't get out of it what you want them to get out of it. So we think it's really important that you do focus on short, snappy contributions rather than sort of taking a more traditional essay type approach, because this is quite a different type of exercise. So yeah, I mean, 150 words should be plenty for you to ask a question and give the kind of rationale for your question. I mean, you don't need to make that a very, very long, pointed thing. But that applies to all of your posts, really. The best ones, I'm sure you'll find once you've read a few from other people, are the ones that it's very quick and easy to understand the points that person's trying to make, and you don't have to sort of look for the good bits amongst lots of repetition. Okay, so yeah, word limits are important on all of the posts, and we'll point that out if we think that you're being excessive. I mean, obviously we're not going to count every single word, so if it's a few words over, don't worry about that. But it is obvious if something is massively too long. Okay, right. So I'm sorry, I couldn't. I'll come back at the end to see if I can share that screen again, because I've got a little bit of an issue with that at the moment. I'm just looking at my list of other points I wanted to make. Okay. Oh yes, there was what I was saying just now about finding extra resources that other people hadn't done. I wanted to highlight Sarah because she found a great video that wasn't included in our course notes, which is quite critical of the digital native debate. And another thing that's interesting, I think, about this topic is, and most of you have identified this very clearly in your posts, is that you don't like the idea of the digital native, you don't think it's relevant, and you've given plenty of examples why you think there are much better ways of looking at this whole issue. But certainly in the UK, the term is still very widely used. Digital natives is used very commonly by people who just want to talk about young people's use of the internet. So they use it in a very general sense, and the suggestion is that anyone who's under 20 has got to be an expert with technology. And even though I completely lost the thread of what I was going to say then. Yeah, so even though you've highlighted loads of evidence as to why young people aren't necessarily experts in technology and why older people can be just as effective in learning new skills, this is something that we're still seeing today in 2014, 10, 12 years after it was originally published. So it does illustrate that, once something has taken hold on the internet and become popular, it's very difficult to get rid of, even if it's later proved to be wrong. So I think what this topic should help you with as well is in terms of validating your sources and cross-checking references, because if you just came across a search randomly for digital natives and you found an article which did what I've just said, talked about how all young people are experts in technology, if you just accepted that as being the definitive view on the topic without digging any deeper, then you'd be really going down a blind alley. So, I think it does illustrate the general point that it's very important with any online research that you do, that you validate not just the individual source, but you cross-reference it with later things which may have actually said something very different about the same issue. Okay, sorry, Sarah's asked another question. You meant the replies to the comment. Yes, I think that's good practice as well. Yes, keeping your replies nice and short. And from a practical point of view as well, once you've been through a few topics and you've started to get a lot of content on your blog and a lot of comments on each post, then it will start to look very wordy. So the more concise you can make things, and the more you can make use of other media like images, diagrams, video, then that's all helps to improve the look and feel of your blog posts, so they're not just long passages of text. I think it's very tempting to use the technology as a replacement for pen and paper. So you're sort of just focusing on writing an argument in text, but we've got so many more possibilities now to bring in other media to really enhance the points we want to make, that you should make the most of that. I mean, something that a number of people did in their first posts was they took the diagram from Davis White's diagram of residents and visitors, and they applied their own use of the different tools onto that diagram and put that in their blog. And that's a really good thing to do, because that's quite neatly drawing upon materials that you've been supplied with and applying them to your own experience all in one little exercise, and it doesn't take up any words either. So that's a really good example. Okay, what else did I want to show you? So we've talked about being concise, we've talked about bringing in your own experience, talked about evaluating your sources, talked about referring back to other modules. Okay, yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say so far. And obviously I haven't read everybody's contribution yet, particularly if any were made overnight. This list comes from yesterday. But we will be over the weekend giving you your proper feedback on your topic 1. So remember, your second posts are due in by the end of today. Did notice 1 or 2 people have skimmed the deadline, so we do notice these things, so please bear that in mind. It's particularly important in a module like this to stick to the deadlines, because we've got a lot of topics to get through in a short period of time, and if we're going to be able to give you prompt feedback, we need to have all the material there so we can work through it, sort out your feedback and give it to you when we've agreed to. If things are coming in late and the topics start to overlap, then that's going to get really messy. So so please make sure you stick to the deadlines. Okay, we've done that question. Right, I'm just going to have another go. I'm going to give you space for a minute to ask any questions that arise either from what I've just been saying or anything else you wanted to raise before the weekend. While you're doing that, and while you're thinking about that, I'm just going to have another go at my screen share to see what seemed to be going wrong with that, because there were a couple of examples I wanted to show you, but I couldn't actually find them properly. So bear with me a moment. No, okay, I'm not having any joy with that at the moment. I'm not sure if it's an issue with my Windows here, but okay, don't worry. What I'll do in the summary post for today, I'll put in those 2 examples as links that I was going to show you. So it was just a couple of people I thought had made a particularly good job of their first post, but maybe they'll be glad I don't embarrass them in public anyway. But I'll put those links into the summary post, and so that you've got those to refer to. I'm not seeing any new questions, so I think we've probably. I know what I wanted to say. Yes, a little job for you for the weekend. Just in case you feel that you're being deprived of having 2 whole days without being on your course, I thought what you might like to have a think about is, in terms of building your own digital profiles, is thinking about what's actually going on in your local community that's relevant to your program and your studies. So, for example, are there any local societies? I'm pretty sure that there's a Singapore branch of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, for example. There may well be other similar types of organisation, industry bodies, networking clubs that hold events or particular things happening in your local region that you collectively as a group or people from your group may wish to go along to. So what I was going to suggest was you see what's going on in your local area. You use Twitter to do this and do some searches through Twitter for marketing events or digital workshops or whatever keywords you think might get you there. Or else if you know a particular organisation, have a look at its Twitter feed, see what it's doing, see if it's advertising any events that might be of interest to the class, and start following them on Twitter, basically, so that your Twitter contacts aren't just people on the course or people that you're friendly with outside the course, but you start to pull in organisations that might be of use to you, either to go along and attend their events, or because they publish useful content on their blogs, or for whatever reason you think they're useful to your studies. Now, this may be where you start to think about whether you need a separate Twitter account for the module or not, because you might feel that you don't necessarily want to have that type of contact mixed in with your social contacts, or you may think that it's fine and you're not bothered either way. But it should make you reflect on the whole issue of social versus professional digital profiles, which is a good thing to be doing. And also, I think it would be a useful resource for everyone. And we can then create a list of all the organisations or individuals that you've come up with. There may be some key people, for example, that go around doing talks on different marketing topics that might be beneficial. I don't know. You're the experts in this because it's your local area, but I'm sure there will be lots of things happening that people from the group could benefit from going forward through your course. So if you'd like to have a think over the weekend, do a little bit of research and see if you can come up with any, and we can start creating a list and pulling this together, which would be a resource you can draw upon going forwards. Okay, so that's just something which you might like to do if you're bored over the weekend. Okay. Right, I've got another question. Is there a deadline to reply to the comment? Yeah. I mean, it should definitely be within the time span of that topic, because it isn't very fair to people that you're interacting with if you don't reply in time that they can draw upon that when they're doing their reflection. Then that's really not very fair. So yeah, if you could reply to the post as soon as possible, that would be good. And yeah, certainly not after the topic's ended. So you really need to give people time to have read your comments and thought about how they might want to use those comments when they're writing their final post. So please make sure you leave time for that to happen. Okay, any more questions? I'm not seeing any more questions. Right. Okay, could we, seeing as we're at the end of the first week, perhaps with just a little bit of feedback, any smiley faces or puzzled faces? Okay, I have another question here which says, you wanted to follow Twitter accounts? Yes, exactly, yes. That are marketing related, but yeah, they're not just kind of randomly finding marketing companies, but people who are doing useful things. Either they're running events, or they're posting useful content, or they've got really active Twitter accounts which you think are examples of best practice, something like that. So yeah, we don't just want a telephone directory of everybody who's doing marketing in Singapore, but yeah, things that you find are particularly useful. It may be companies that you follow already that you think other people would benefit from. Okay. Right. Any feedback? Any smileys? Just checking there's nothing else there at the moment. You're still holding on there. It's 23 viewers, it says at the moment. So we could just have one or two smiley faces just to check that you're all understanding what I've said today and that you're okay, clear about next steps. So you basically got to the end of your day today to finish your topic 1 post, and we'll get you that feedback over the weekend, and we'll also post over the weekend the topic 2 question for you, which you'll be starting with on Monday. Okay, so next week it's pretty much full on topic 2 days, topic 3 2 days, so it's all going to go very quickly, so please make sure you're all up to date. Still not seeing any smiley faces. Oh, excellent, Evan, thank you. Anyone else? Final call for questions. So don't forget, if you're stuck with anything over the weekend, if you think your blog posts aren't linking in, or anything I've said is unclear, then feel free to ping through an email or a tweet. And don't forget, this recording will be on YouTube with all the others. Oh, I know, there's one other thing I forgot to say. We have now put a link to YouTube from the blog. So if you go to the main course blog, in the top right-hand corner, you'll see a little button. And if you hover your mouse over it, it'll take you through to YouTube, so you can see all the recordings that we've made so far. Right, okay, thank you. Thank you for the thank you. So, okay, so I'm going to sign off now then. Have a good weekend, everybody, and I look forward to talking to you all again on Monday, possibly with a guest or two. So it won't just be me you've got to listen to rambling on. Right, okay, so I'm going to switch off and say goodbye, have a good weekend, and see you all on Monday. Okay, thank you. Cheerio.